welcome everybody. I'd like to welcome you back to Tuesday Lunch and Learn. And as we say at Emmett, if it's Tuesday, it must be Lunch and Learn. So we hope that these classes are inspiring people to utilize, have some time in the week for some Avodas Hashem, and to hear ideas which inspire us to continue our growth. This week, I'd like to speak about a topic which I think is relevant to Elul. And although not directly related to Elul, I think it's particularly relevant at this time because I'd like to speak really about the power of our words, the power of who we are, and the way we can influence others. And if we can influence others, of course, we will influence ourselves. And the goal of Elul is to make that change in ourselves, to turn back to Hashem and say, I want to live up to be that person that you created me to be. So to understand the power we have is probably so critical and so crucial. And in many ways, that was the message of the Slobodka, the great yeshiva in Vilna, which really focused so much on this concept of Gadlus Ha'odam, the greatness of who we are. And if anything's lacking in our generation, maybe we could even say it's that we don't appreciate really how powerful we are, how much we can influence people with our words, with our actions, how much we can change ourselves. We live in a world, perhaps we've demoted that concept and lost sight of what we call the greatness of who we are. And so I'd like just to bring that out in an unusual way, but in a way which is directly from the Parsha. And for this, we're going to look at last week's Torah Parsha, which was Parsha Shoftim. And in Parsha Shoftim, we are offered a very interesting concept, maybe even a mitzvah. And it has to do with, in a very specific situation that says, Ki motzi chalal bi odama. It says one finds a person who was murdered, killed. We find him in the field, we don't know who murdered him. What has to happen is the elders and the judges, really the great leaders of the generation, have to come and they have to measure out and determine which town is closest. Not which town is the largest city nearby, but which town is actually closest in proximity to the deceased. Where you measure deceased from is a whole question. But we want to find out what is the closest town, and I guess assuming that the murderer will somehow come from that town. Or maybe that town bears the greatest responsibility because it's the closest. So what has to happen? It says, "V'haya ha'ira krova el chalal," the city which is closest to the deceased. They have to take a calf, and it has been egla, a young calf, a calf that was never worked, a calf that never had any type of yoke on it. They take the calf to a nachal eitan, is called to a ravine which is barren. I guess this aspect of the starkness of it, like that in order to evoke the emotion of the loss and the desolation and the destruction of a life. They break the neck of the calf by this nachal, by this ravine. The Kohanim are there. We call Zikni Ha'er and all of the elders of the city. And again, when we talk about the elders, we're talking about the great men of the great men of the generation. Zikni Ha'er are here. Krovim el Chalal, again, who are from the city which is closest in proximity to where this body was found. Yurchatzu es Yedeim ala Egla Arufa B'Nachol. They have to wash their hands on the Egla Arufa over the calf whose neck was broken. V'anu v'amru. And they have to make a declaration. What do they say? Yodeinu lo shafchu asadam hazeh v'einenu lo ra'u. Our hands did not spill this blood, and our eyes did not see. Koper li'amcha Yisrael asher patis Hashem al titin dam noki b'kel amcha Yisrael dechaper lemadam. Hashem have kapara, have atonement for your nation Israel, which you redeemed. Don't allow innocent blood to be amongst your nation. Let this blood come as an atonement. Hashem, remove the innocent blood from your midst. Kitasa yosher, that when that which is right is done in the eyes of Hashem. It's very interesting, and this Parashat Shotim ends with this particular mitzvah of what we call the egel arufa, or the calf which you break the neck. We look at the incident or the halacha outside. I guess there are just a few things come to mind. Why were they doing it? So different opinions, and one opinion, of course, is that it should be what it means. Human life is so crucial. The death of one person, a murder. What does that mean? You can't just allow injustice to go unpunished. You have to identify it, and you have to be aware of it. And this is a person, we don't know who the murderer was. One person. We go out of our way, where the great men, the great leaders, the Kohanim, the Zakanim, the sages, have to come. And of course, by coming, it in addition to attracting attention to the travesty and the importance of every life, hopefully it will also, according to different Mefarshim, perhaps bring witnesses. And the witnesses will be able to say, we saw something, we heard something, we might help us to ascertain, identify who the murderer was. So it does attract attention, in addition to just drawing attention to the importance of life. Maybe justice can be pursued in this fashion. And they come, and it's this very specific ceremony where they have to measure to the closest town, and the closest town seems to be the most responsible for some reason. It's not the town that has the greater population. Somehow it's the closest town, and that's a very specific law in the Torah and the halakha discussion. Do you go after the closer or the majority? Karov Arov. It's really a different discussion, but this is brought as one of the proofs that sometimes closeness is the greatest indicator. But that aside, the question that I'd like to really focus on is, what is this declaration that the elders of the city have to make? So let's read it one more time. It says, all the elders of the city who are closest to the body, they have to wash their hands sort of over this calf that's neck was broken. And they have to respond and say, Yadenu lo shafchua es adam hazeh ve'einen lo ro. Our hands did not spill this blood, and our eyes did not see. What does that mean? The elders of the generation, the great men, the perhaps even the members of the Sanhedrin, these are great sages. And they have to come and they make a declaration. Our hands did not spill this blood, and our eyes did not see. What does that mean? Well, let's try to take it slow. That Yadenu lo shafchua, our hands didn't spill this blood. So Rashi asks a question right on that, and he says, what could that mean? He says, "V'ki alsa alev shezichne beis shavchui damim heim." Would anyone possibly suspect that the members of the Great Assembly, the members of the Great Beis Din, the Jewish court, the sages, would anyone ever suspect them of spilling blood, of being murderers? So why do they need to make such a declaration? Ve'einenu lo rahu, and our eyes didn't see. What does it mean? So Rashi continues and quotes the Gemara in Sota and says, "Ela lo reinuhu patruna below mezonos below levia." Obviously, it doesn't mean that we're accusing them of spilling blood, but rather it's a declaration. The Gemara in Sota, Mem Hey 45 base says, "Lo reinuhu patruno below mezonos below levia." We can declare that we know as a fact that when this person left this town, he did not go without proper food, seder l'derech, proper livia, proper accompaniment. We know that when a person leaves one's home, so you're supposed to give them something seder l'derech, something to eat along the way. And we know you have to melamed them. It's a mitzvah in the Torah to accompany a person as they leave your home. So the sages have to say, we are not responsible for the death of this person. Perhaps because we fulfilled our requirement to make sure this halacha was known, or even more specifically, we can testify and know for a fact that this person, when he left the home of the individual from whom he came before he was murdered, we can testify that he did not leave without food, proper provision for the way, and we can declare and testify that he had proper livia, proper escort. He was accompanied. Meaning what? If any of those two were lacking, then we would be responsible for his death. If he didn't have proper food for the way, and if he hadn't been escorted properly, and we knew about that, and we didn't intervene, we would share the burden, we would share the responsibility for his death. Let's think about this for a moment. Maybe we can understand the first part of the sentence. Had we known that he left this home without proper food, yeah, maybe we would be responsible. Because maybe his attackers attacked him 3 miles down the road, and had he had provision, had he been given something to eat, he would have been a little bit stronger, he would have had a little more energy, or maybe it was 5 miles down the road. He was walking, maybe he had something to eat, something to drink, and he would have had more strength, and he would be able to defeat his attackers. He would be more physically able had he had proper food. So we have to declare, no, we know he had proper food, so we're not responsible. But the second part of the sentence, the statement, is even more puzzling. We have to declare that we know that when he left, he had proper livia, proper escort. So as we mentioned, we know that it's a mitzvah to accompany a person as they leave your home. You have to accompany them. You have to walk out with them. Meaning what? Had he not had proper escort, we would be responsible for his death. Now, let's think this through for a moment. Where might he have been killed? Let's say he was killed 3 miles down the road. Okay. How far are we obligated to walk that person as he leaves our home? What does the Torah demand of us? Does the Torah demand that we accompany the person to the next town? Does the Torah demand that we accompany that person 1 mile, or maybe a half a mile? Or does the Torah demand that we accompany that person maybe 500 feet? Fascinatingly, the requirement to walk someone out of your home is a requirement to walk that person dalet amot, 4 amot, which translates into approximately 8 feet. One is obligated to walk 8 feet with the person as they leave your home in order to fulfill the halachic requirement of being milave, accompanying a person as they leave your home. A very beautiful concept, by the way. When a person leaves your home, we don't just send them off. We are required to walk them out. But we're only required to walk them out 8 feet. Now, if this person were killed within 8 feet of the home, one could say, look, why didn't you walk that person out? Had there been 2 of you, of course, you might have defeated the attacker or attackers. But he wasn't killed 8 feet in front of the house. He was killed a few miles down the road. So how could walking that person 8 feet possibly have helped prevent the death of this person 3 miles down the road? To such an extent where, again, our sages, the great leaders, have to declare, we know that he had proper escort when he left. Had he not had proper escort, we'd be responsible for his death. But no, we know he had proper escort. He was escorted 8 feet out. What happened 3 miles down the road, therefore, is not our responsibility. because we know he had his 8 feet of walking. Now, listen carefully. That means that if he didn't have that 8 feet of walking, of accompaniment, and he had been killed 3 miles down the road, we'd be responsible for his death. How could we be responsible for his death? He didn't get killed over here, got killed over there. I heard a very fascinating answer to this question. And before I say that answer, let me just say the Maharal first. The Maharal Prague suggests something very interesting. He says that what's the whole purpose of walking a person out of your door? The reason behind that beautiful mitzvah is to show that you feel solidarity with the person. We're together. It's not just you're leaving my house, I'm with you. We're part of a larger unit called the Jewish people, and I'm walking a little bit with you to show that there's a togetherness amongst us. We're one nation, one people, we're a family, and I want to walk you out just to show you and demonstrate that. So the Maharal wants to say, just on a spiritual level, it's something very beautiful, that when Hashem sees that we love and care for each other, he gives special protection. Just walking somebody 8 feet and showing that I'm with you. Take me with you a little bit. You know, I'm together with you. We're going to part break now, but we're really one. Showing that love, that brotherliness, that solidarity with another Jew is family. And Hashem smiles on us so greatly when we show with we're family. And the Maharal wants to say it's a spiritual thing. We get extra siyata d'shemaya, extra protection from God. So if one didn't accompany those 8 feet, we wouldn't get that extra protection from Hashem, and therefore, it's possible that a tragedy could take place, and we'd be responsible for that tragedy because we didn't evoke that extra protection, which we could have evoked by showing brotherliness and love. We didn't have that extra protection from Hashem. We see to what extent Hashem loves when we conduct ourselves as family. However, I'd like to offer another explanation, and this is an explanation that I heard from my Rosh Yeshiva, Menek Leibovitz, Tzal, the great Rosh Yeshiva, Chafetz Chaim. And Rav Henoch suggested as follows. He said, it's true. The mitzvah is only to walk the person 8 feet from your home. And granted, he wasn't killed in those 8 feet. He was killed miles down the road. However, we have to understand what can happen as you walk a person 8 feet from your home. Well, let's see. How long does it take to walk 8 feet? Maybe it takes 4 seconds to walk 8 feet. What could happen in 4 seconds? You have time to say maybe a sentence and a half. I want to thank you for coming. It really meant a lot to me. Thank you for spending time in my home. You're a very special person. Have a safe journey. That's about it. Maybe even just half of that. Thank you for coming. I appreciated that you spent time with me. Thank you. Have a safe journey. Or maybe just even part of that. It was very special having you. Have a safe journey. One cannot say many words in the time it takes to walk 8 feet. However, in that time, one can literally affect the destiny of that individual. Not necessarily from a spiritual vantage point like the Maharal wanted to say, but from a very practical, psychological, insightful way. You could change a person's self-definition. You can enable a person to see how special they are. You could enable a person to realize, wow, you really believe in me. You really think I'm somebody. And that belief that they feel in themselves as a result of you can literally be the difference between life and death. In other words, that one conversation might have given the individual the fortitude to defeat their attacker 3 miles or wherever it was down the road. Because you said 2 sentences or a sentence and a half. You're a special person. Thank you for coming. That is so powerful. We don't understand oftentimes the power that we have to change another person's life. We think, okay, just words, who am I? I can't affect anybody. The Torah is saying, don't think like that. In the time it takes to walk 8 feet, you can offer words that might be the difference between life and death. And had you not said those words, the elders have to claim we're responsible. We knew he didn't have 8 feet of accompaniment. We knew he didn't get that words of inspiration. And therefore we are culpable as well in the death of this person. You can change the life of a person in the time it takes to walk 8 feet. That's the magnificence of this halakha, of this statement. That's the power that we possess. And again, as we are in Elul right now, a few weeks from Rosh Hashanah, we have to realize we have such power. We can affect the lives of other people so magnificently. It doesn't necessarily take even a long conversation. It might just be offering words of encouragement, words of belief. I believe in you. You're very special. You can do it. We don't understand how powerful we are to affect others and to affect ourselves, to send messages inside ourselves to say, we can do it as well. You know, just to close on a personal story, I remember in my early years of learning in yeshiva, I was discouraged, as oftentimes people do get discouraged when they're not necessarily succeeding in the way they like to succeed. And I remember one time I was working on a particular point in the Talmud with my study partner, my charuta, and I was feeling just very low and feeling discouraged and feeling maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not going to succeed in learning Talmud and in Jewish learning. Maybe I should pursue a different area, maybe not pursue the path of being a rabbi. And as I was struggling to understand and feeling so internally discouraged, one of my rabbis came by, and I remember he stopped and he listened to what I was saying. And he said 4 words. He listened and he said, music to my ears. Music to my ears. Indicating that what I was saying was on the mark a little bit, or if it wasn't on the mark, he was acknowledging the effort I was putting into it. And music to my ears is what he said. I remember to this day how I felt a surge of confidence in myself. And the realization and the feeling that maybe I should give it a try, keep pushing. Maybe I can do this. So in some ways, I feel my life was changed through 4 words. That's the power that we possess. It's the power given to us by God because we're all created in the image of God. And therefore we have an enormous power to affect the lives of others. To never underestimate that ability. And of course, to never underestimate the ability that we have to make that significant change in ourselves as well.